The digestive system's functions include taking in food, breaking food into smaller molecular pieces, absorbs molecules into the body, and eliminates waste. It is made up of the GI tract and accessory organs. The GI tract consists of the mouth, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small and large intestine, and the rectum. Accessory organs include the teeth, tongue, gallbladder, salivary glands, liver, and pancreas. Digestive processes include ingestion, which is food and drink entering the mouth. Repulsion is moving food and drink into the GI tract. Peristalsis moves material in the GI tract. It is a series of wave-like contractions. Mechanical digestion is chewing food in chunks and mixing with saliva. Segmentation mixes food. Chemical digestion breaks down molecules to basic components. Absorption is the component small enough to pass through the mucosa and into the blood. Defecation is expulsion of feces. Compaction is the formation of feces. The mucosa here is the innermost layer. This is where cells secrete hormones and enzymes. The submucosa, which is this pink layer right here, it is mostly areolar tissue and where blood vessels and nerves are found. The muscularis externa, which is this layer, has the inner circular layer, which makes rings, and the outer longitudinal layer runs along the tube. Its functions are segmentation and peristalsis. The serosa, which is the outer layer, also known as the visceral peritoneum, consists of areolar tissue and is covered with simple squamous epithelium. Its function is to create serous fluid. Visceral peritoneum is on the organ. Parietal peritoneum is on the cavity. The mesentery connects tubes to the back wall. Intraperitoneal is inside the abdominal cavity. Retroperitoneal is behind the abdominal cavity. It includes the small intestine, large intestine, pancreas, and peritonitis is the inflammation of the peritoneum. The oral cavity consists of the mouth. This is where food is chewed. It moistens with saliva and swallowing occurs. The lips and the cheeks keeps the food between the teeth and helps with speech. The labial frenulum, fold joints to the gums. The palate is the roof of the mouth. The hard palate consists of the bony part, which is the maxilla and the palatine bone. The soft palate is the muscular part. The uvula closes off the nasopharynx when swallowing. The tongue repositions food to teeth and forms a bolus. The lingual frenulum attaches the tongue on the bottom of the mouth. The filiform papillate covers the whole tongue. It is rough and moves food around. Fungiform are the red dots on the tongue and houses taste buds.
So you have permanent teeth when you become an adult and deciduous teeth when you are a baby. Teeth perform mastication to form a bolus of your food. There are 32 total teeth, and then this is your adult formula for your teeth. Your first two teeth are incisors, which perform the cutting of your teeth or of your food. And then you have your canines, which are second, is for tearing your pieces of food, and then your molars behind it for grinding and crushing your food. And then here is like a diagram of the tooth. The top is the crown, the middle is the neck where it connects to the gums, and then the bottom is the root. Your enamel is going to be the outside of the tooth, dentin is the inside of the tooth, and then you also have the pulp cavity, which carries the veins and arteries, which is your root canal. Periodontal ligament is what holds the tooth in place, and then the gingival is your gums. So your salivary glands produce saliva, which the functions of saliva cleans mouth, dilutes chemicals, contains enzymes to start breaking down of your food. You have your parotid salivary gland, your submandibular salivary gland, and your sublingual salivary gland, and on here as well. Saliva is made up of water, salivary amylase, mucin, lysosomes, IgA, electrons, metabolistic waste, and growth factors. The pharynx has two parts to it, the oropharynx and the laryngopharynx. The oral one is behind the mouth. The laryngopharynx is the passageway for food, water, and air. Histology: it is made of stratified squamous epithelium. Functions include swallowing. It has a buccal phase. The tongue pushes the bolus of food through into the oral pharynx. The pharyngeal phase and esophageal phase come together to create the pharyngeal esophageal phase, where the tongue blocks off the mouth and the soft palate rises, which would be up top. Then in the esophagus, the esophageal hiatus is the hole in the diaphragm which allows food to pass through the bolus and move into the esophagus. The cardiac orifice is the place where the esophageal comes together with the stomach. The cardiac sphincter, which is here, it's not a true sphincter. It doesn't stay closed all the time. Special features is esophageal glands secrete mucus to help move food. Longitudinal folds run up and down to allow stretch, which would be these ones. Muscularis externa composition is top 1/3 is skeletal muscle, the 2/3 is going to be skeletal and smooth mixed together, and the 1/3 is going to be the smooth muscle. Two side effects for the esophagus is heartburn, which is a gastric reflux disease. The stomach acid regurgitates into the esophagus, and then a hernia where a part of the stomach sticks out through the diaphragm.
So this shows the stomach. The functions of the stomach include temporary storage, which does not do most of digestion. Enzymatic digestion is mostly proteins. Chyme is the juice in the stomach, and absorption consists of water, alcohol, caffeine, and aspirin. For the gross anatomy, this is the greater curvature, which is the bigger one. This is the lesser curvature, which is smaller. Rugae is inside the stomach. They're the folds that allow for expansion. This is the cardiac region. This part is the fundus, and this whole thing is the body. Right here is the pylorus and the pyloric sphincter.
The small intestine general functions include digestion is completed, mechanical and chemical. The most nutrients is absorbed in the small intestine, and propulsion. Some structures are papillae circulae, or circular folds, which are in the middle of the inside, which raise the surface area. Mesentery proper, which includes blood vessels, lymphocytes, and nerves. The subdivisions is the duodenum, which is going to be the first part, which is in front of the pancreas. The ileum is going to be the middle part, and then the ileum is going to be the bottom part, where it connects to the large intestine with the ileocecal valve. The ileum also includes power patches. Here is the histology. This is the microvilli, and then this is a single villi from this, and this is what helps with absorption of the small intestine. And the small intestine layers are made up as the same as the stomach, with mucosa, submucosa, muscular externa, and serosa. For the large intestine, it starts here in the cecum, which is connected by the small intestine through the ileocecal valve. Its general functions are water absorption and fecal combination. Its structures are the tendon coli, which is going to be the tendon that runs across. And then you have the hausstrums, which are going to be the little pouches on the sides. And then connects to the colon at the bottom, and then the rectum, which is where it has an internal and external anal sphincter.
So this is the liver. The liver makes bile. This is the right lobe and the left lobe. This is the gallbladder, which forms the common hepatic duct, the hepatic artery, and the common hepatic portal vein. So the hepatic portal vein brings in nutrient-rich blood into the liver. The hepatic artery brings in O2-rich blood, and bile is released from the bile duct.
Here is the pancreas, and it connects to the spleen, which is an accessory organ. This bony-like structure is the main pancreatic duct, and then behind it, this is the gallbladder connecting to the pancreas, and they will connect inside, which isn't really noticeable in here, but it creates the hepatic pancreatic ampulla, or it creates the sphincter of Oddi, which is going to be this little dot right here. This leads pancreatic juice and bile into the duodenum of the small intestine.
So these are the functions of the pancreas for the endocrine cells. So alpha cells produce glucagon, which increases blood sugar levels. Beta cells produce insulin and decrease blood sugar levels. Delta cells produce somatostatin. There are three main types of enteroendocrine cells. One is gastrin, CCK, and secretin. The production site for gastrin is produced by G cells. The stimulus is the food in the stomach, or sight, smell, or thought of food. It targets the stomach and the small intestine. The action is it causes increase of gastric juices and increase of stomach motility, and also increases motility in the small intestine. CCK's production site is in the small intestine and the duodenum. The stimulus is the fatty chyme in the duodenum. And the pancreas it targets the pancreas and it increases production of enzyme-rich juice. It also targets the gallbladder, which contracts and bile is released. The sphincter of Oddi opens to let bile and pancreatic juice into the small intestine. Secretin's production site is the small intestine and the duodenum also. The stimulus is acidic chyme, and it causes production of secretion. It targets the liver, which increases production of bile. The pancreas produces bicarbonate juice. In the stomach, it decreases stomach motility. So carbohydrate starts in the mouth. It moves through the mouth through salivary amylase and turns into polysaccharides. Nothing happens in the stomach, it goes straight to the small intestine, moves through the small intestine with pancreatic amylase and turns into disaccharides, which then turns into sucrose, lactose, and maltose. Sucrose turns into sucrase, which is one of the brush border enzymes, which then turns into glucose and fructose. Lactase turns into glucose and galactose. Maltase turns into glucose and glucose. Then we move to the proteins. Nothing happens in the mouth. Goes straight to the stomach through hydrochloric acid, which then turns into polypeptides. Then we go into the small intestine, and it turns into trypsin and chymotrypsin and carboxypeptidase, then to amino acids. And then finally the lipids, nothing happens in the mouth or the stomach, goes straight to the small intestine as triglycerides, moves through with bile and pancreatic lipase, then turns into glycerol and fatty acids.